Amazing. Well, good morning, good afternoon. Nice to see all of you here this morning. A great way to end the week for me is to end it with all of you. So thank you again. Today, I'm excited to go over Davines Treatments. I feel like when I do product knowledge classes or even when we have education based on Davines products, because treatments are so involved, we tend to just kind of like throw it in at the end and it just becomes sort of this jumbled mess. And so, what I thought was that based on what I've been seeing in some of the sales reports, that consumers have been more interested in masks and hair treatments than I've noticed before. So, I thought that it may not be a bad idea to put a little extra focus on it and maybe allow us to kind of continue with this momentum. So, again, thank you for joining. My name is Jessica. I'm based out of Vancouver, Canada. And the login that you logged in with is my phone number. So, at any point, you can text me and give me your email address and I can send you a recording. Or even if you just had questions or wanted any type of support, I'm here for you. So anytime, I'm happy to hear from you. So with that, let's go through the whole concept of thinking of why would we want to consider using a hair treatment in general, right? So one of the things that I often kind of refer to is maybe I'll just look at the fact of I'm wearing a top that has a more delicate fabric, right? So I'm wearing a top that has a delicate fabric. And so when I pack this shirt, when I wash it, when I dry it, I give extra care and attention to thinking of the fact that this is a specific fabric as opposed to maybe what we look at when it comes to other fabrics that are more durable or even other ways of caring for things. I often refer to our skin. So those of us that are, sort of informed or are conscious of aging with skin, we also go through a series of steps or care, and we tend to not be very rough with our skin, hopefully, and we tend to apply various creams, tonics, serums, and specialty programs. So when you think of things that are delicate and require care and attention, I often find it interesting that our hair can be neglected by even someone like myself or others. Now, I may give you the excuse that because my hair is short and it's dark, so I don't need to have the same care and attention. Ultimately, I do. And I know that if I don't use the products that I do, I really see a difference and feel a difference in how my scalp is, but also how my hair performs. So these are going to be things that I think are important. And many times the end consumer is not aware of their hair being a fiber. They just don't give it thought. It's the hair that they kind of quickly put in a ponytail and an elastic. It gets caught in zippers or whatever, and they're kind of just yanking at it, or even when they're combing or brushing it. And when we think of that type of care and attention, it really is important that we share our knowledge and then in turn allow people to have the opportunity to use the products that are going to best care for their hair. And so this is why I thought it would be great to focus on treatments. So when we think about skincare, when we look at how we address our skin, generally speaking, we look at a certain effect. So we look at the fact of, oh, maybe our skin is oily, maybe there's bumps on it, maybe there's redness, irritation. And so from there, we tend to look at what it is that we're going to use. So even in a case like right now where we're wearing masks, side note is one of those things that we have to be really aware of is that when we're wearing a mask on our face, what's going to happen is that we're going to end up with a fair bit of dryness in this area because you have something that's rubbing. And at the same time, not only is it rubbing, but you're also looking at the fact that the dryness of your breath is drying out your skin. So those are little things that we think, oh, we need to put more, cream on that area. And when we can take off the mask to give it a breather and to give it air and circulation as well as cleansing so that we don't end up with irritation around our face, those are things that we're going to do. So then if you have long hair and you're going to be putting on a hat if you're working out or in the sun, or you're going to be tying it back, you need to consider that same type of care and attention. So this is going to be some of the things that I think can be really beneficial for us to consider and focus on. So if our hair, kind of starting from, the root area, and then we're sitting into maybe somewhere like a bob or moving into the shoulders, at this point, this hair has been on our head around 7 years. So thinking of anything that we've had for 7 years, a beautiful silk scarf, a lovely even throw that you have on your sofa. Those are the types of things that, like, how are we caring for those? And yet our hair doesn't have the same ability to regenerate the same way that our skin does. So therefore, it is important that we consider, what does the hair need? So when we think about vitamins generally for working with hair, so when we're working with natural or enhanced ingredients that are going to be focused with vitamins are going to work a little bit more on the surface. So what they're going to do is they're going to tend to help surface and help kind of the way that the hair visually is going to be looking, but also moving forward then into something like fatty acids, which we use in skincare, is going to be what you see for more of the softening and more of the slip. And now we start moving into, from the fatty acids, we're moving into more of the moisture, which then is going inside. I oftentimes refer to our replumping in NaturalTech because it has plums in it. And I say, okay, so if your plums were dehydrated, you would have prunes. So, do you want your hair to have kind of that shriveled up effect of a prune, or do you want it to have the plumpness of a plum? And so when you think of hydration is actually giving that fullness as opposed to something that's shriveled up. Now, for myself, I know for years, having finer texture of hair, I often thought that hydration would make my hair feel heavy and weighted, and not realizing that it's often more of the cosmetic slip that's doing that, not the hydration. The hydration can actually give the hair nice fullness, softness, and shine. And then we move into amino acids. Amino acids are the building blocks. So that's kind of putting back into the structure and allowing the moisture to have a house, as well as allowing the protein to strengthen. So these are all going to be aspects that when we think of treatments, they're working in different levels to help repair the hair. But we can't neglect the fact that if we don't have something going on to support our skin, which basically, like thinking of soil, you need something for fertilizing, you need to have a great foundation. And so skin is going to be a factor in all of this. So what I've done is I've considered all of the different treatments that we have, and I'm going to kind of go through some of the different stories with them. With this, I actually didn't include, not NaturalTech, I didn't include essential hair care. The reason being is that essential hair care is a beautiful performing line. It does have slow food ingredients, which are the ingredients coming from Italy that are supporting biodiversity and protecting various ingredients from becoming extinct. The reason being is that that line tends to have a fair bit of care and attention. And at the same time, that line also is a little bit more on the cosmetic benefits and a little less internal treatment. Of course, it will improve the quality of your hair, but when we're really looking at deep repair, meaning if I use something that is cosmetic, so thinking of makeup, when I remove my makeup, when I wash my face tonight, the makeup is no longer on. Whereas when I think of something internal, like a treatment, even if I just used it today and didn't use it tomorrow, I would still have the long-term benefits of what I used today. And so that's where I tend to put a difference. So cosmetic is going to be something that I use today and it feels amazing. My hair looks incredible and I am good to go. Whereas something that is more of an internal treatment is giving you a stronger foundation, regardless of whether you continue to maintain it. And that's why behind the chair, we've often suggested doing these types of treatments in salon and allowing your guests to have that type of support. So with that, maybe in salon treatments are not going to be something that we're going to be doing as much of, for the fact that the end consumer is not going to be sitting in the salon longer than necessary. Although if you're doing a color correction or a color service, I would highly recommend that that is incorporated in. And I'll go through which products and why and how you would incorporate it, but just for your standard treatment. So therefore, as I touched on before with the idea of a virtual consultation, this is where anyone that is recommending or basically giving you the feedback that they would like to grow their hair, automatically they should be using a mask or a treatment. So let's maybe go through the list of people that should be using different types of treatments for their scalp and hair. Now, the obvious, like we go through with NaturalTech, are going to be the people that have hair loss, psoriasis, eczema, dandruff, oily scalp, all of those hair and scalp conditions. But let's just talk about the general people. So now what we're going to consider is anyone that has longer hair and wants to grow their hair, considering that it's a fiber, that it's been on their head for 7 years, and that there's really nothing else that we're wearing for 7 years straight. Anyone with mid-length to longer hair should for sure be using a mask or a treatment. Then, anyone that wants to stimulate or encourage hair growth should be using a treatment. Anyone that potentially is prone to scalp irritations or issues should be using a treatment. Anyone with color services or color correction should be using a treatment. So now when we look at all of those different categories, we're probably left with like this much out of that much that should maybe not necessarily be your category. And some of those are probably going to fall more into the male category, although they would be the category that would be wanting a treatment if they have scalp or hair issues regarding hair loss or irritations or, the flakiness. So those are going to be really, when we look at it from a percentage, you're probably looking at 80% of your clientele would benefit. And so one of the things that I have kind of thought of, and why I also thought to do this workshop, was if you choose to not do a blow dry in your salon. Now, let me just go back to the fact of why would some people say they don't want to do blow dries in salons. So at this point in Vancouver or British Columbia, where West Coast Beauty is, there is no regulation that says you cannot do a blow dry. So it is up to the salon, up to the stylist, and up to the end consumer. But the reason why it is said sometimes it's not recommended is because although we're wearing masks, when something is blown around with hot temperatures, it is easier to spread something if there is any type of sickness or disease. Now, of course, there are things that you can do again to help minimize that if you do want to do blow dries. So again, I'm not saying that you shouldn't, I'm just giving you options if you choose not to, or even if you have a guest that chooses not to. What I would recommend is there's a few treatments within Davines that you can use and leave in and rinse out later. So meaning you can pretty well leave them in for almost 24 hours and leave them in. So those two are going to be ones that I would recommend for your guests and as an option. So you could literally say, and this can save you some time depending on what it is that you're doing, is, maybe you're not going to do the big blowout and maybe they're going to, you're going to do a basic check with a quick blow dry, but you can do 2 different treatments that you can leave in that are going to be really effective for you when we look at leaving in for a treatment instead of a blow dry. So in that case, one of them is called Restless Circle. So Restless Circle from Davines, part of the Circle Chronicles, has chia seeds. So remember when we talked about vitamins and minerals, fatty acids, we talked about kind of the moisture, the amino acids, and the protein. The nice thing about Restless Circle is that it has chia seeds. So chia seeds are going to fall in the strengthening category. So they're going to kind of fall into that whole like amino acids and the strengthening side of things. So the term is going to help you because the name is called Restless. So the Restless Circle is going to be someone that is great for me because I don't like to sit still. Now, sure, I am sitting still and sharing information with you, but outside of that, I don't sit still throughout the day. I'm constantly moving. So for me, standing in the shower or in a bath for 10 to 15 minutes is not going to be ideal for me because I have things or places I want to move to. So Restless Circle is for that person that is restless and can't sit still. So this is a treatment that you can leave in and let people leave the salon with it. So again, I thought this is a great support that you could be aware of right now that you could start using for people that don't want to have a blow dry, or even if you chose a few people that it doesn't make sense for. I think people would be very happy to have a treatment. And so with this, how could you work it if you're not going to do a blow dry? If you're not going to do a blow dry, you could even put this treatment in and do a braid if someone has longer hair. Or potentially you could even put it in a few little bobby pins or pins that kind of almost set it so that then when they let it out, the nice thing is that when this actually dries in the hair, It does give kind of a little bit of a thickening feeling. It's not going to be like a big puffy blow dry, but at the same time, even if you had curly hair, you could kind of pin it in some like little ringlets and kind of clip it underneath. And then when it dries in the hair, then they can just take the clips out and they have a treatment in until they wash it the next time. So Restless Circle could be one of them that you could use as a support, but remembering the chia seeds. Now the other one, I was excited to be able to share this because this happens to be my favorite for many different reasons. Not necessarily always as a treatment, but for all sorts of purposes. This is authentic butter. Authentic butter falls in our 98% naturally derived, and it is completely biodegradable in 30 days. The whole authentic line is gentle enough that you could dump it in the ocean. And as Davide, the owner and founder of Davines, will tell you that this can be used to wash a whale. Well, not necessarily the butter, but the whole line itself is gentle enough to wash a whale. So with this, carthamine oil, which is safflower oil, is going to be the primary ingredient in this. And this improves elasticity. So it is also going to be very softening, and it's very rich in vitamin K, which has healing properties. So authentic, this whole line, is 98% natural, and it is also dermatologically approved and tested. So with Davines, keep in mind, Davines makes skincare, hair care, and color. So all of those factors kind of complete the circle that helps you remember that all of our products are going to be incredible for skin because we have the same research and development lab in Parma, Italy that's working with skincare, hair care, and color. So we manufacture and craft everything in Parma, Italy, and therefore it has that full cycle. So with that, what you're going to know is that this is going to be great for skin and for hair. Then, also keeping in mind that all of the products that I go through are completely and 100% color safe. But this one specifically being proven as dermatologically tested and approved means that not only can you use it as a mask and a treatment, but you could use it as a night cream and you can use it on any dry areas. For me right now, because of how many wipes and disinfectants and sanitizers I've been using, the authentic butter has been my personal favorite for my hands for long-term hydration. So again, what's great about the authentic butter is that you can use it head to toe, but it can be a leave-in treatment. So again, you could put this in your hair and braid it, or just leave it in, slick it back, however you want to wear it. And this is another treatment that could be left in, but it could also be promoted as a multi-purpose product. The price point on this, I'm always amazed with because of the fact that if we think of what a high quality skincare would be for this type of a size in a glass jar, also supporting sustainability. And I also kept as proof of how many of these I go through, but I save these little jars and then I use them for other types of storage. So that's going to be one of the nice things is that glass is a far more sustainable product to work with than plastic for the fact that it is a higher purpose for recycling or higher percentage than plastic. So with that, authentic butter is going to be another treatment that you can completely leave in and wash out later. So those are going to be the two that I think could be great supports for you guys behind the chair right now if you choose, or if the consumer chooses that they would prefer to not have a blow dry. And so you save some time, which then maybe could give you time to cleanse and sanitize in between, and the person is getting accustomed to the types of treatments. So how would you work the pricing? My recommendation is that if someone is going to purchase it, maybe then you just make it sort of like as part of the service, you do the complimentary, or depending on where your salon is and the type of rewards packages that you have, you could also factor that in and get some of those treatments in your back bar rewards, which then means you could actually use them sort of complimentary, but factor it in other ways. So those are going to be things that you could consider with it. Now, the other treatment that kind of falls in a little bit of that leave-in category is going to be our liquid spell. Our liquid spell is going to be considered almost like liquid magic. What I really personally love about this is not only the fact that it saved my hair, but also the fact that this is going to be internal and external treatment. So what I mean by that is that this is going inside and working outside. When I'm trying to kind of explain the internal and the external, I often refer to a sponge to help me. So if I think of a sponge, so you have a sponge and it has all the different holes in it. Think about what happens to a sponge that's been used too long. The sponge holes start to spread apart more and more and more, right? And it starts to kind of lose its shape and it almost doesn't sit in that nice form anymore. So what happens to our hair could be very similar. We think of the way that the hair is comprised, and then it starts to kind of have the rough surface. So when we look at something like Liquid Spell, you're going to be fixing and repairing the surface, cosmetically feeling, but you're also going to be internal. Amino acids are going to be the primary focus in here. That's going to be bringing that structure and repair at the same time as giving tons of moisture and hydration, because it's giving it that house. So then you're going to find that the hair has tons of shine and softness as well as repair. My personal story in this one is going to be in the fall. I think it was September. I chose to be a model, demonstration model, to prove that my black hair that had been colored every 2 weeks forever and ever and ever, with tons of overlap because my hair is dark and I color it myself. But the problem with that, of course, is that I don't really care if it overlaps, because black on black, how dark can you get? But that is a problem when you're wanting to remove it. So anyhow, I ended up blonde, and silly me, I didn't actually consider the fact that I needed to change my hair care routine. So what I thought was, I'm just gonna go ahead and just use all of the same products. Now I know better. I share education and I help people with what they should be doing, but somehow when it comes to us, we sort of don't remember always to implement those systems. So I woke up the very next day, washed my hair, because I wash my hair every day, which is a horrible idea as a blonde, but I did, and I ended up looking like a dandelion. So of course, I started applying oils and all sorts of different creams from a cosmetic standpoint to try to improve the softness and shine. They worked, but the next day when I ended up using Liquid Spell, my hair was completely different in how it looked and felt. It actually became my hair again. So the whole reason that Liquid Spell was created was it was created for fine hair that is blonde and damaged. Of course, you can use it in any texture of hair, but the nice thing about it is that it will help change the structure and the feeling of hair. Now, the one point to remember is that this is ideally heat activated. So when we talk about you doing these types of treatments in a salon, this is something that I recommend only really for people that like to blow dry their hair. So it is meant to be blow dried in to be the best and strongest performer. So this is another unique treatment that can be external and internal, and it can be used as often as you like. It is cumulative, which means that every time you use it, it keeps improving. Now, there's no concern in continuing to use it. I just sort of say it's kind of like a sponge with moisture. Once a sponge has enough moisture, that's it. It's not going to change. It just stays full of moisture. So when you've maxed out in what your hair can be repaired, then you're going to be set and just don't need to use it as often. Because the product itself as Liquid Spell is meant to give some nice texture and fullness and volume, keep in mind that it is a foam when it comes out, and if you use too much, then you will feel more texture, which means a brush may have a bit of resistance coming through. So when you're kind of brushing your hair through with a round brush and a blow dryer, you may feel that it is more voluminous than you want, which for some people like myself with a finer texture, if I had longer hair, that would never be a problem. But if you had thicker hair, then you may feel that is more of an issue. So if anyone ever feels that there is a little bit too much texture, remember less is more. And that's going to be the case really for all of the Davines products. Part of the value is the fact that they are very concentrated. And if you refer to how we use skincare, that's going to be your best reminder for how you use hair care. I'm not going to put a big handful of face cream and smear it in, because it's not going to have the ability to absorb. And I'm going to be left with sort of a residue that needs to be continuously rubbed in. So same thing with your hair care. So now with that, I'm going to quickly touch on the other Circle Chronicles before going into NaturalTech, just because that one I think is great to do all on its own. So with the Circle Chronicles, these are going to be all your masks that are in the little packages. I feel like these are an incredible support for the end consumer because they are very consumer friendly. When the consumer looks at them, they feel like they're easy to use, they give immediate benefits, but they are still a treatment. The size in itself is a great support for you. There's a little twist top, and the twist top then when you're done, flips upside down and snaps in. Although this is 50 mils, it is actually like for someone like myself, if I'm going to use a treatment once a week, this is going to last me over a month. For other people, it may just be a few weeks. So depending on how you're going to use it or how often. But these masks in particular, being the Circle Chronicles, can be used as often as you like for your hair, and they can be interchanged. So that means that if we look at it, and I say, okay, for my hair, the blonde is all out, but let's just pretend there's blonde still underneath in the ends. So I say, okay, my scalp is a little bit oily by nature, and then my ends are a little bit dry. I could do one of the treatments on my scalp, and I could do another one of the treatments on the ends. And this little packet gives the ability to actually squeeze it directly on the hair if I wanted to massage it or rub it in, and then to distribute into the ends. So I can have many of these masks going either at the same time on my hair, or I can alternate days or use it in whatever system that I feel makes the most sense for the performance I'm requiring. So let's go through these. Quick fix. Quick fix, we're going to remember what the name says. Quick fix is the one treatment that we only need to put on for 3 minutes. It uses hyaluronic acid. Hyaluronic acid is used in skincare, which is a filler, and it plumps up. It works based on a sugar molecule. So the sugar molecule has the ability to attract more moisture and kind of trap it in so that you get that fullness and softness and shine. So if we think of the sponge as the hair shaft, if we basically filled in all of those little holes to give it a perfectly smooth surface, it would just have a different shine reflection and a different softness, and it would be full with moisture. So that is going to be your quick fix. Thinking of immediate benefits for people that don't want to have as much time, and they're going to give more shine and more softness. The next one I'll go through will be Renaissance Circle. So Renaissance, the name in that is remembering going back in time. So hopefully there was a time in your life, and maybe it is now, that you absolutely adored your hair. Not because of the cut or the color, but the way that the hair feels. When we are younger, and I'm meaning younger in age, but also younger in hair, meaning new growth in hair, our hair is softer, shinier, and fuller. As we age, and as our hair ages, meaning if our hair has been on our head 7 years, even if we're 20, it is still aged hair. So we're going to find that it loses our softness, shine, and fullness. So Renaissance Circle uses babassu butter, and that is going to be a softening benefit that is going to be great to bringing that texture back to the hair. Who is this ideal for? Renaissance, meaning taking your hair back in time, is going to be great for people that are blonde, great for swimmers, and also amazing for anyone that likes to use hot tools. So now you have the quick fix, which the quick immediate benefits, and then you have the Renaissance taking us back in time for more softer hair. Spotlight Circle. The last one in this bowl is going to be, as the name says, Spotlight. This is your perfect selfie-ready picture for your hair. It has mica and little bits of makeup that you find in makeup that gives that extra bit of shimmer and sparkle. So some people are going to be prone to not having as much shimmer in their hair. Naturally, the hair that doesn't have as much shine is going to be lighter hair. When you think of darker hair has the ability to reflect light, whereas lighter hair tends to absorb it in a different way. Also, texture. Smooth and straight hair is going to have the ability to reflect light and shine, whereas the fact of curlier texture hair is not going to have that smooth surface. So generally, I find people with lighter hair are going to really enjoy this, as well as more textured. Now, even hair like mine that is darker and straighter still can benefit from Spotlight Circle for that selfie moment. So that's going to be your Spotlight Circle. Now, these ones I put into the separate bowl because they tend to be a little bit more scalp focused, or also kind of more of a feeling that they're going to provide for you. What I mean by that is that Let It Go is that product. So Let It Go uses Brahmi oil. Brahmi oil is used in meditation. So right now, maybe for those of us, myself sometimes included, they need to just take a bath. Some people may say I need to have a glass of wine, or I may need to light a candle, meditate, whatever that looks like to kind of let it go. This is the mask that was created for that. So it has the relaxing capabilities because of the fragrance, but also it is going to give nice softening and fullness to the hair. So it's allowing the hair to kind of let it go and to kind of bring back what that softness and bounce, once potentially had, but also from a sensory experience. That's going to be your Brahmi oil. Then the other two, more focused on scalp, are going to be Wake Up and Purity. So both of those, you can kind of see where that's coming from. When you look at the clays in these masks are going to have certain colors. Like the Purity, for example, is going to use charcoal. Charcoal, if you were to use that as a face mask, is a great extractor. It kind of removes any impurities. This will not change the color of blonde hair, but you should only use it for the recommended and probably don't sleep with it overnight. I still don't think that it would change it, but just my recommendation. So Purity is going to be great for purifying your scalp. Again, remembering if your scalp is like the foundation and you need to use fertilizer, you need to keep that pure and clean. And so that's what this one's going to be great for. At the same time, for someone with a shorter texture of hair, I may enjoy it the whole way through because it is going to be purifying my hair as well from any product buildup, but any type of mineral buildup that could be happening from the water. And it will give some nice fullness. Wake Up. Wake Up is for that moment where you feel a little bit sleepy and sluggish. Sometimes that happens when you're overworked. Sometimes it just happens just because of the change of weather. So with that, the Wake Up is going to be also a really nice one for the scalp. It's going to be stimulating and it is going to make the hair feel alive. So those are going to be the different masks we have with the Circle Chronicles. Definitely remember that with these ones that I've just referred to as the Circle Chronicles, they all fall into our top sellers. I'm going to say every single one of them in the top 20. So what I'm referring to is that is referring to sales, not units. So over the last few months, not necessarily the last ones that we were, the salons were closed, but prior to that, those were all sitting in the top 20. So again, I always say when I owned a clothing store, there were certain items, even if I didn't personally want them or want to wear them, it's a missed opportunity to not have something that is a top seller. Picture this. You open a clothing store and you choose to say, I'm not going to have any black. I'll tell you from my experience of owning a clothing store, every single item in your clothing store, someone says, do you have this in black? And at a certain point, you can't have a clothing store of just black, but every item someone wants in black. So this is going to be something when I say, what is, where do you kind of find that value? These masks definitely do extremely well naturally on their own without a lot of support. But of course, your support is going to be incredible to help further their growth and their sales. So those are going to be the Circle Chronicles. Also, the liquid spell, I think when I last looked at the report, it was sitting at about number 8. So again, that is one that is going to be highly recommended. If you're wondering what our number 1 and number 2 are, it is OI, oil, and OI milk. And it switches back and forth. I think recently it has been the milk over the oil. So that just kind of puts it in perspective. So those are going to be the treatments that we've just covered. And the Authentic, although it is my personal favorite, I do feel like that one can be lost in the shuffle. Unfortunately, I'm not sure really why. I think it is just something that happens, and maybe it is a lack of familiarity. But anyone that I know personally, that is going to be one of their favorites. And I feel like if you looked at my purchases from the last year, that's probably the product that I've purchased the most. I also forgot the fact of the vitamin K in it. It has healing properties. So if you are someone that likes to have tattoos or you have clients, they are great to use after tattoos or during. And also for sunny weather, although we have a Sue line, the Authentic butter is also great for healing sunburns. So anything along those lines, the authentic butter is great for the whole hair and body and other healing properties. So now let's move into our NaturalTech line from this perspective of treatments. So as you can see here, I did not put all of the NaturalTech up. I'm just focusing more on the treatments so that we get them or give them the care and attention that they need. So with NaturalTech, reminding us of the fact that anytime the shampoo has a matching conditioner, it can be used as often as you like, anytime you like. The treatments in NaturalTech that do not have a conditioner are meant to be used until the problem goes away. So that's going to be a good reference for you. Generally, there are people that are just going to continue to use the product as often as they like, and that is also okay. But for best benefits, you should be just using the shampoo and conditioner regularly and the treatment as it's required. So people will ask me why. So let's say you're prone to headaches. If you continue to take Tylenol or Advil or Aleve every single day, after a month or two, what happens is it stops being as effective. So that's why we say with treatments, you need to take a break and to come back to them. I actually really like that because specifically in hair loss, some people have told me that when they use a hair loss product, the minute that they stop using it, then their hair starts to fall out. So with Davines, that is not the case when you're using the energizing. When you use the energizing and you take a break, it just allows the hair to continue in its natural cycle. And then when you bring it back, it kicks it back into gear because it's like awake again. It's something new and fresh. So that was just a side note. Now let's go into our detoxifying. Our detoxifying line is going to be ideal when you notice and you realize that people have scalp or hair conditions. Let's give a consideration to the fact of what's happened for most of us. As we've touched on in some of the Zooms earlier this week that I had, when we go through a change like we did, we actually go through the stages of loss. So the first one is going to be shock. So it is sort of shock and disbelief. What happens to our systems is that it affects us emotionally and physically. One of the signs that we start to notice with hair is that our scalp tightens. So as it tightens, kind of imagine like if you were to squeeze one of those stress balls and you squeeze it really, really tight. So you squeeze this ball really tight, and unfortunately what happens is that the circulation from the scalp to the root of the hair starts to cut off. And unfortunately, hair loss happens usually around 2 months after that. So some people are going to experience hair loss based on what we've experienced. Now remember, we're not alone in this. Even for the people that maybe were still working, various things affected them, whether it had to childcare or school or a spouse or a friend or illness. So pretty well everyone has experienced some form of shock, stress, or trauma. So with that, the NaturalTech treatment line is going to be a really good focus to help bring hair back to the way that they would like it to be. So if you've experienced that, that could be one of the side effects of trauma. The other one could be psoriasis, eczema, dandruff, any type of flakiness. So any of the scalp conditions, you need to start at a starting place, which is a deep cleansing. So in this case, what we recommend is we recommend using the detoxifying scrub shampoo. The scrub in here, not sure if you can see it. The lighting may not show, but basically it's a fairly thick scrub. It's like almost like a minty green color with some little beads in it. I always want to remind you that from an environmental position, these are completely biodegradable and it uses jojoba, but as well as silica. Silica is a mineral base, so it completely breaks down. But just like exfoliating your skin, you're now exfoliating your scalp and exfoliating your hair. The benefit to this is that all of the NaturalTech are going to have various phytoceuticals and complexes. Those are going to have the ability to fight aging, to fight inflammation, to have antibacterial, and to fight disease and breakdown. So all of those benefits are going to be found in the NaturalTech line. So at the same time as exfoliating, you're going to be removing any impurities. You're going to also be using some antibacterial properties, and it is going to be deep cleansing. So this is going to be a great place to go. Now, of course, you can use this for the fact of thinking of product. But ultimately, we're really focusing on the NaturalTech line more from the perspective of having the type of pollution and buildup that's either happening from stress, but also happening from water and pollution and things that are external in our environments. So that's why you're going to need something a little more intense. When you think of what happens to our bathtubs or any type of water where you start to see that buildup, that's where you're going to find this is going to be removing it, as well as well water or smog. The good benefit of us being closed for a bit is that we have definitely seen that pollution has been minimized. So at the same time, we still want to use this. Now, who would be a good category person for this? Outside of having a scalp issue, definitely blondes. When you go to highlight hair, you naturally will see that the root area when you highlight is going to be brighter and lighter. Part of the reason is because of the way that the hair is. The hair is going to be a finer in texture. It doesn't have kind of that same buildup in the hair that makes it more resistant. But the hair from mids to ends that has been blonde, unfortunately, over time, what you start to see is that it's pollution. It's just like a white shirt or a white towel that over time, no matter what you do, starts to kind of build up that residue. So with that, you're going to have to remember that you need to exfoliate to keep that blonde bright. So some of your clients that have come in recently are going to be coming in, you're going to find that their blondes have had a little bit more buildup because they haven't been in as often. So sometimes if I'm going to do a toner at the sink and I'm just doing the regrowth area for my lightening, what you may want to do is use this detoxifying scrub and gently just scrub on the mids and ends. If you're doing a full bleach out, it is going to be too sensitive to scrub on the scalp, something that is an exfoliator. So it's just going to be used mids and ends to kind of get that pollution buildup removed so that then when you tone, it's beautiful, consistent right through roots and ends. Now, here's going to be another option if we really want to detoxify in a more clay form and we wanted to detoxify the scalp. So if someone has been using different types of medications or has not been well or has any type of scalp issues, this type of detoxifying clay is going to be a little bit more calming feeling than something that is an exfoliator like a scrub. When we think of an exfoliator like a scrub, if we were to wash the hardwood floor, we would wash it with like a nice mop. If we went in and buffed it, that's going to be a little bit different in how it feels. So with that, the clay is going to be put on roots to ends and it's going to extract this way. It is going to be a clay coming from Italy, and so it does give the ability to extract, but also to soften and create shine. After you leave this clay mask on, you're going to rinse, and it is best to remove then with the detoxifying scrub. So this is going to be the step that you do for your foundation for when you're looking at scalp or hair issues. But as well, it is a great support to be using once a week. I often say Sunday or Monday is a great detox day. So detox your skin, detox your hair, and your scalp all in one. Now we're going to move to the renewing family. The renewing family, we sent this one for an outsourced testing to prove that outside of Davines, so not necessarily Davines' opinion, but outside of Davines, this line was tested to improve by more than 25% the softness, shine, and fullness. I often say, if I could have my hair improved by more than 25% softer, shinier, and fuller, why wouldn't I? So this is going to be the line that we are going to refer for that. So who would this be good for? This is going to be good for anyone, but of course for what we consider aged hair, but I also love to refer it for people that have very resistant gray hair. Remember that when people are having resistant gray hair, meaning having gray coverage issues, of course it is partly the texture of their hair, but at the same time, if they're using good products to help allow that moisture, which is going to stop the color from repelling, and it's going to allow the hair texture to become softer, they will have better results for gray coverage. So these are things that can be minimized and managed. So when we look at how does this work, the Renewing Pro Boost Super Active is going to be sort of your first step. And what we're going to think about in this is that this has gluconatone. I can never say that word. It is a really, really long word. And basically with that, gluconolactone, I think is what it is. And that one is basically going to have the ability to give cell renewal. So naturally, what we're going to consider is that our skin wants to have a renewing process. So this is going to give our scalp that renewing and regenerating process. At the same time, it also uses glycolic acid. Glycolic acid, think of it as a fruit peel, which means it has the ability to extract. So it's extracting impurities at the same time as promoting cell renewal. So with that, any type of scalp issue is going to feel better with this. This is painted on directly onto the scalp. So not as much of a focus for the hair, but just more for the scalp. And with that, when you use this, you can use this up to once a week. So I'm going to say who I like this for is people with psoriasis, eczema, dandruff, oily, anyone that is basically having hair loss, any type of scalp issue. It is a great treatment to be able to use. This one is only in Salon. So sometimes what I have done, and I'm not behind the chair anymore, but I do have about 4 or 5 friends that on the weekends, sometimes I will do their hair. I used this once on a girlfriend's hair because I was doing her highlights and I started noticing that she had a lot of kind of like, it's like a crusty buildup. So it's basically like a dandruff that has kind of created into a bit more of a fungus. So with that, now what I do is when I do her highlights, before I rinse it, I go through in between her highlights and I actually paint this on the scalp for the last 10 minutes. So that then when I rinse it, I'm rinsing it all together. Now it does make the hair and the scalp, not the hair, sometimes it does make the scalp a little bit pink. So keep in mind, if someone like myself is sensitive with skin, it will bring a little bit more of that pinkness to the surface. But again, it's just like if you were to do a fruit peel on your face, it starts to almost allow the hair and the skin to feel that alive feeling. So you'll feel like it's fresh and like it's almost breathing. It's hard to explain until you've actually tried it, but incredible treatment for the scalp. Then your take home is going to be the renewing shampoo, the conditioner, and the super active. The nice thing about the conditioning treatment is that for a finer texture of hair, I could use this before I wash my hair, or before and after, or after. So I'm going to recap on that. So for a finer texture of hair, I could wet my hair, use this conditioning treatment, rinse, and then I could shampoo. So in a way, I've reversed the traditional program because I'm saying with a finer texture of hair, I want to keep as much fullness as possible. Then what you could do if you have a medium texture of hair, you could just do your traditional shampoo and conditioning treatment. Then if you had coarser, wiry, resistant hair, resistant to gray coverage, you could do it before and then shampoo and then use it after. So you could do it in all of those. When we look at the renewing line here, we're mainly focusing on spinach. What does spinach do? Spinach allows us to have better absorption. So that's going to be one of the benefits that you see for the vitamins and the minerals, but also for the benefit of repair and cell regeneration. So this is going to be the main focus of this line. So if we're doing that as a program, and you're going to go with your scalp, kind of regenerating and renewing that cell process, but also extracting. And then we're going to treat the scalp and the hair, remembering that even the scalp benefits from the conditioner, so massage that in. Afterwards, now we're going to use the tonic serum. So with this, the dropper, how it basically works is you fill the dropper and then you go along the scalp and you're going to rub it in and pull it through the ends of the hair. If you think about how good a serum is for anti-aging, I often say, and I've done this on a call before, but okay, so we're gonna look at what my skin looks like there, and then I'm going to rub it in. You can see that immediately it is softer and it almost has like a more supple, soft kind of like elasticity feeling to it. So it's going to be harder to see, but I don't know if you can see that it definitely like all like sort of the wrinkles or the imperfections are now softened. So of course that can happen when you put something on immediately, but this has longevity. And so it's meant as that anti-aging serum. What you're going to see in this one is that this one has the ability to kind of put back it's almost like those natural microorganisms that are good that you get from yogurt that kind of are great for your body. That's what this is going to be doing for your scalp. So it's kind of bringing those back to life and keeping that circulating and regenerating. And that's why you want to use the whole program as a whole, because again, this would be considered more like your fertilizer for your scalp. So that's going to be the program with renewing. So again, recapping on who this is for. This is for aged hair, meaning hair that has been on your head a long time. And it's for that really resistant, coarse, wiry hair that can be resistant to color, and just the texture is not as soft and supple feeling. Now we will move to the replumping. The replumping is one that I really enjoy and appreciate because of the fact of, think of what the name says, it is replumping. So it is great for plumping up the texture of hair. In this one, the main natural ingredient is going to be plums, as we touched on. But then when we look at the treatment, the super active filler and the hair filler spray, these ones are both going to have hyaluronic acid. So with this, when we think of a finer texture, thinking of going from that prune to a plum, so plumping it up, or thinking of something that kind of is dried and shriveled up and giving it moisture, like that sponge that's all kind of shriveled and dry and kind of plumping that up. This is going to be great for people that have finer texture of hair, but it is also going to be incredible for people with curly hair. When you think of that curl formation, when it has moisture more consistently, it allows that curl to have a softer flow to it instead of being kind of brittle and kind of feeling like it doesn't have that nice feeling in elasticity. I don't know about you, but when you pull an elastic band, you expect the elastic band to kind of have a nice rebound, whereas sometimes when we pull it, we feel like it pulls and then it just kind of snaps. So that is going to be what we do not want from hair. So you're going to find that the replumping is ideal for that type of texture. The shampoo and the conditioner are fairly straightforward. When we look at the super active hair filler, this is a treatment that is used at your back bar, and it is for professional use only. You're applying it with a nice bowl and a brush, all the way down the hair. Then the recommended is to use the hair filler regularly at home to continuously bring back what that is that's going to be for your alpha hydroxy acid. So that's with the hyaluronic acid as well. So hyaluronic acid, remember the fact that that comes from the sugar molecule that's going to basically help bring that moisture back into the hair. So thinking of filler and bringing that in. So that's going to create that nice fullness and that nice hydration. And then the take home is the super active filler. So this you spray in right the way through. And generally speaking, remember that when you see a smaller container, you need less of it. And I feel like generally you can alternate where you can use that every other day for the spray because of the fact of the ability to hold onto the moisture. When I've started to use that, definitely I've heard that people say like your hair looks so much shinier and softer. So it definitely does make a difference. And every time you use it, it improves the benefits. So that will be with your replumping. Now, saving probably what we almost want to say is our best for last because of the ability to really create miracles. Whoops, sorry, that's glass on glass. To create strength and repair for hair. So this is going to be ideal for our blondes because what we find with blonde hair is that blonde hair, unfortunately, is the hair texture that is such demand, but it also tends to push the limits more than the other textures of hair will. So what I mean by that is that most of the time people want to be blonder and lighter. And for us as stylists, it is very hard to not have any type of overlap. And depending on who did the service first, or depending on whether someone went home and did something, there's always going to be that risk of potential breakage. So what we're looking for in something like the keratin treatment is we're thinking of the fact that keratin and color have a love romance. So what I mean by that is that keratin, meaning the strengthening of the hair, when the hair is filled in properly, so thinking of the sponge, it's going to allow you to be able to attract the moisture, but also have the pigments. So what you're going to consider with that is that if you have really big holes in the hair, you put the color in, the color goes in, the toner, let's say the color, meaning the toner goes in, and it kind of just gets spit out. Whereas if you give it a nice foundation, meaning keratin, so you've made the holes smaller, then when the color molecules go in, it kind of has a foundation to sit in. So anytime that you are lightening hair, it is going to be really important that you consider how are you replacing the strengthening of the hair. So in that, we're going to be looking at the fact of we want to be using keratin, but we're also repairing with a bionic bond. So this is going to be a unique type of treatment. With this, in this whole program, many of you probably will use and have used additives to your bleaches or to, treatments in your hair that are meant to repair and restructure the bonds of the hair. Davines created one, and basically that is used in the bleaches and it is used in the nourishing. So this is going to be where we use our bond repair. So what you're going to find is that you're filling in the imperfections, so you're filling in all the holes that are missing in that sponge, but you're also having the ability to repair and restructure the hair. You're going to be doing that for the fact of lightening hair, but also just basic sun damage and wear and tear that happens with finer textures of hair or blonder textures of hair. So here's how you're going to use all of them. One thing quickly first though, it is going to use a vegetable keratin, so vegetal keratin and a rice protein. So that's what you're going to find as well to support the bionic bonds. So the treatment that you have that you can use in the salon is going to be the Keratin Wonder. This is a treatment that you would apply at the sink and you're going to use for the hair itself, so not as focused on the scalp. For general conditioning and repair, you could use this on its own. But when you want to really repair more extremely damaged hair, thinking more of that bond repair, then you're going to use the booster. The mixing ratio is going to be 5:1. So 5:1. And you apply them together in a bowl and then distribute through and leave on your 10 to 15 minutes. My recommendation is after you do a lightening service and before you tone, you do this program. Then the person takes home this program, which is the shampoos and the conditioners and the masks, depending on their texture and the service. So you have the Nourishing shampoo itself with the vegetable keratin, and the rice protein, which is going to be great for softening and repair, and ideally for blondes. Then you're going to have the Vegetable Miracle. Vegetarian Miracle has two options. One is a conditioner and one is a mask. The conditioner is going to be the one that's great for more medium and finer textures of hair, whereas the mask is going to be meant more for medium and coarser textures of hair, knowing that depending on whether your hair is fine like a piece of thread or thick like a piece of rope, it's going to need a different type of repair to support the way that the hair is. So finer like a piece of thread is the conditioner, and thicker like a piece of rope is going to be the mask. Then we have a building pack. So let's say you do this treatment in the salon. This is repairing the bonds and restructuring the hair. Then what are they going to do when they're at home? They're going to go ahead and use the mask, the pack, sorry, not the mask. The mask is in the Vegetable Miracle. The pack is going to be your protein. So this is going to be smaller quantities, lesser quantities, which is great for the consumer to maintain. My recommendation is to be using this once a week to support the strength and the repair of the hair. I do have to say that, yes, I do say that the liquid spell was what repaired my hair and was a miracle. But during the lightening process, then this was what allowed me to not have the breakage that I could have had without using it. So this is going to be the repair. It also allowed my toner to have more longevity. So for me, when I go to this as the back bar product, I recommend that this is factored into your lightening services. And here's why, is that if you were to go to the dentist, they don't often give you, or I've never experienced, they give you the option to not have fluoride, because fluoride is what's going to protect your teeth. So for me, I think of it's my responsibility to have someone protect and repair the bonds of their hair as well as protect their color. If I worded it that way and I said, well, do you want to protect or repair the bonds of your hair? The consumer is going to think, well, why are you damaging the bonds of my hair? So a lot of times we have to realize that this is just part of the process. When someone lightens their hair naturally, the bonds are kind of being broken, but also just general wear and tear of combing and brushing and tying back. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to make sure that you're reinforcing and repairing the bonds, and that this is part of your responsibility to do with them in your color service. And that just becomes factored into the price and the time, and not necessarily something that's being given a decision. For me, specifically after having the experience that I did, if I was behind the chair again, I would not lighten anyone's hair without them committing to proper take home beforehand. I know that sounds strange to say because you're like, well, you should have known this anyhow. But for me, always having black, dark hair with a finer texture that generally is fairly soft and doesn't get tangled, to have the extreme and to kind of feel a little bit as a loss to what I was supposed to do with my hair, I would say automatically, if someone sat in my chair and is having their hair lightened, I would say part of the agreement for this service is that you will, have this treatment as part of the service, inclusive in the price, and that you will be bringing this home. And this is kind of how I want to make sure that your hair is maintained so that you can continue having the length, the shine, and the softness. And that during the process of lightening, any type of lightening, you start to weaken those areas of the hair. So in order to maintain that, this is what's required. I think when it's positioned in that way as part of our professional service, it makes sense. So then the final step in this is going to be the sealer. The sealer, again, is going to be a simple support. It is something that you spray in every time and it keeps the cuticle closed. So we could go with the sponge, or sometimes when we think about the cuticle, it can be helpful to think of bark on a tree. So if you think of almost like a Christmas tree with the pine needles coming out and then coming closed, what we want to do is we want to have that cuticle closed. When the cuticle is closed, it generally is in a more acidic environment. So it's keeping that cuticle closed, which means it will also give you better light reflection and shine and softness. So this is going to be the final step in our Nourishing program. So with that, giving kind of a little bit of a recap on this, our first step is going to be to detoxify. Remember, for anyone that's having any type of treatments from a medical standpoint, detoxifying is going to be an incredible starting place. It's also going to be great for anyone that has noticed buildup in their bathrooms, but also well water or just general cities and locations where there's pollution. I feel like people that have pollution in the big cities, it's going to be more from an outside perspective. And more of the medium-sized or smaller towns, they tend to have it more in their water systems, or in both cases. Regardless, that's where the detoxifying will be great for scalp and for hair, but also to keep your blondes extra bright. Then we move to the renewing family. The renewing family is going to be more for that resistant gray hair, for softening. And think of this as spinach, as giving you the absorption, but also going to be giving you that support from the glyconic tone with the exfoliation at the scalp. And the final with the serum, that's going to be kind of like your fertilizer for your scalp. Then moving into the replumping family. The replumping family itself, remembering plums going to instead of prunes, and you're going to have your hyaluronic acid. Your hyaluronic acid, thinking of basically giving you that sugar molecule that's going to help attract and retain moisture. Then the final one in this category is going to be looking at our vegetable-based keratin, rice protein, as well as the bionic bond. And this is going to be the repair and the restructuring, as well as your support for your blondes in between your bleaching service and before your toning. So that's going to be kind of how those programs work to support your treatments. And then, of course, you have the Circle Chronicles, which are the quick and easy ones to refer to, and the names hopefully will help you know which ones to use. And then the Liquid Spell is the one that you use more as a styling product that has cosmetic and internal benefits that's going to help kind of repair and give shine and fullness. And then lastly, the two treatments that you can leave in that maybe can be a great support for you now, which are going to be the Authentic Butter and the Restless Circle with the chia seeds. So hopefully, considering the fact of pretty well every texture, regardless of who you are on this call, I can quickly do a look and imagine how your hair could benefit as well as your scalp would benefit from using these types of products. This is the type of care that our hair requires, but as well, when we're in this industry, it's helpful for us to have good verbiage and ways of explaining and making people see how and where the value comes from. Then to wrap it up, I always want to remind myself and you of the fact that Davines is a completely sustainable company. How you can certify that and to be able to prove that when you're having these conversations is the fact that Davines is certified as a B Corporation. To be certified as a B Corporation is a certification to prove that you actually make the world a better place. So Davines has proof and a certification to prove that. And the ways that this happens are the fact of the energy that they use to manufacture their products, coming from wind, rain, and sun, as well as geothermic energy. And then they offset carbon emissions through Ethio trees in Ethiopia. So even something like my flights last year, how the company operates for their facilities, as the products are crafted and manufactured, every aspect along the way is calculated the amount of waste, and then the money is donated to a nonprofit organization, being Ethio Trees, where trees are planted, schools are put into place, water systems are irrigated to create pure and clean water, as well as the natural crafts that happen within Ethiopia. So this is going to be one of the main factors, as well as where the ingredients are sourced from and where the packaging comes from. The packaging, when not essential hair care, is coming from bio-based plastic. So that is a bio-based plastic coming from a sugar cane, as well as the fact that it is going to be easier to break down when it is recycled, but it also uses less waste in the whole process, as well as less plastic. So these are all factors to consider that kind of bring why Davines, as well as why we do what we do behind the chair. So hopefully this can help you with some new inspiration in new ways of sharing. I did kind of promote the whole concept of the virtual consultation. I still know that I would do that if I was behind the chair. What that basically is it's a way for you to be able to communicate with your clients prior to coming in, to be able to address what their hair, scalp, and color needs are, so that you can be best prepared, but also it minimizes the time that people are in salons. Right now, in Vancouver, salons are open, and I know many are not opening until June, but for some of you on the call, there still is no date. So for me, my recommendation again is to be best supported so that we can minimize the time that we're together, but to stay connected and to be professional and to make sure that you can create the revenue that you require to maintain the services. So with that, I will conclude our session, but I'd love to hear from you if you have any questions or any feedback that you would like to get. Remember that the login is my phone number. So at any point, you can text me for your email for any type of information or the recording. I'll stop the recording and then we can go ahead and get any questions going that you may have. So thank you again.